Good morning, Flagler. The doctors are in. I'm Dr. Scott Cleos.
I'm Dr. Andrea Cleos.
And we're here once again to talk about your health and health issues right here in Flagler, Volusia, and St. Johns County. The big news this week, unfortunately, was the assassination of Charlie Kirk. For those, I'm sure pretty much everyone knows who he was, but kind of a conservative pundit. He was only like 31 years old, but he would go to college campuses and he would discuss political issues, and he was a very religious individual, so he was always bringing God and Jesus into his conversation, but a very smart guy. And, whether you agreed with him or not, this act was so cowardly and just so ridiculous. And at the time that we're sitting down here, they have a suspect in custody, or a person of interest.
No, they released him.
No, they have a new one. So that was the newest update, is they found someone dressed in dark clothing. By the time you guys hear this, they'll probably for sure know who it was. I hope so. I can't imagine in this day and age that you could possibly get away with something like this, because there's cameras everywhere. They will just find out who was up there, trace his steps back, and eventually find when he left the house. And when they get him, I hope they make an example of him. Because like I said, whether you agree with him or not, with Charlie Kirk, this was inappropriate. Beyond belief inappropriate, right? You can debate the guy, you can argue with him, but killing him is inappropriate. And it's just going to, it's just going to embolden those that supported him. And just show that how wrong that his detractors were, if this is what they have to retort to. Because, people who can't argue their position, they either have to, scream, yell, mock their opponent, or, I guess in this case, kill them. That's what they do. So what a shame, but our hearts go out to him, his family, his loved ones, his followers. I know it was devastating to some of the people I know who really respected him, but hopefully there'll be people around to carry on his fight, and, again, they're emboldened to make his memory lasting. So the other thing that we kind of glossed by a couple of weeks ago, I got asked in the gym about RFK, Robert Kennedy, or Bobby Kennedy, and did I think that he was doing the right thing? And we've had a couple of inquiries.
We talked about the EBT cards. We talked about
EBT cards and all that other stuff.
Dyes and getting dye out of food.
Yeah. So, again, just to reiterate, I wholeheartedly support what he's attempting to do. Basically, he's trying to make us healthier. He's getting the crap out of our food supply, and he's trying to make people responsible. And, the EBT and the SNAP programs, I'm okay with them, and they're all good intention, but they are now abused, right? They're not
They need to do fingerprinting.
Well, they just need to
automated fingerprint, because that way you couldn't sell it.
Well, yeah, exactly. There's got to be, with this technology that we have today where my phone can recognize exactly who I am, it seems like they should be able to do this with these EBT so that those that really need it have access to it. But, we live over here in Daytona, and I have a buddy of mine who's been doing the spring breaks down here for years. And he says he gets approached all the time, people trying to sell him an EBT card for, 50 cents on a dollar. So they sell it, and then they go out and buy the illicit stuff that you can't buy with an EBT card, which is, alcohol and cigarettes and maybe even drugs or whatever. So, it's not right for the taxpayers to be supporting a program that is just abused horribly. And I look at these programs as a bridge to independence. When I was a kid, those were called food stamps, and there was a little bit of a stigmata associated with that. You had to pull the stamps out of the book, and you got staple foods. Foods that keep your family healthy, and you had to prepare that stuff yourself. You couldn't buy, pre-prepared foods, and you couldn't buy stuff that was already cooked for you. It's something you had to do, and it was good, healthy, staple food. So I'd like to see us go back to something like that. But he's definitely got his detractors too.
Right. So one of the things that is in debate now is this whole vaccination situation where he wants it to make a choice. Technically you do have a choice when you want your children to be vaccinated, or do you want to receive vaccinations, except for children going to public schools. And so that becomes a mandate unless the child has significant allergies. And the way that the vaccines...
I thought in Florida they were trying to get rid of the
recently
mandates.
the Florida has discussed about having it. I don't know if it's officially gone through, where it would be not, you don't have to, it's not a mandate. It would
right.
be...
The Surgeon General is saying it wouldn't
Right.
be a mandate, which
Right.
I think is a mistake, right?
Yeah, so...
I've never been an anti-vaxxer. I mean, I believe in the standard vaccine. You and I were just opposed to the way they were pushing out this experimental, mRNA vaccine, and we thought that it should only be used in patients who were going to be susceptible, not the general population.
So currently, the children receive a Tdap, which is diphtheria, tetanus, pertussis, and a polio, and measles, mumps, and rubella, hepatitis B, varicella, the influenza, the Haemophilus influenza type B, and then as they get older, they do the meningococcal and type A hepatitis, and then they've encouraged COVID. Now, one of the issues, and some other countries have other things that they require, but HPV is another one that they encourage. In some places, they do the rotavirus and also tuberculosis. But what's going to be happening in the future is all these viruses will be given out as an mRNA, not the traditional old way that we've received vaccines, but the new vaccines that are going to be approved are supposedly going to be approved. And apparently the late trials in 2025 this year are using the mRNA technology and nanoparticles. And I think a lot of people actually, it's not the traditional way, have had quite a bit of angst about this.
Oh, I wouldn't get one of those.
So,
for sure.
But that's pretty much what's coming down the pipeline is all these mRNA, all these will be mRNA. So the influenza, RSV,
now, the question
CMV,
is,
HIV, EBV, are going to be lipid nanoparticles, mRNA lipid nanoparticles.
Okay, so that's the question, because even the influenza is made with mRNA technology, but what they do is they take that mRNA sequence and they put them into human cell lines, and then the antibodies that are produced by those human cell lines are then harvested, and that's what goes at the way I know, like the quadrivalent flu vaccine. Mm-hmm. That's the way they do it. So they may be using the mRNA, but it's not injected into a human; it's injected into a human cell line, and then the antibodies are harvested. I'm a little bit better with that. I don't know how they separate out the mRNA from the antibodies per se.
Well, I don't know how they do that, but this is the whole reason why they have the lipid nanoparticle, because it helps transport.
Lipid nanoparticles are what the transport vehicle they use to transport mRNA. That's what Moderna and Pfizer were using. And then you had the Johnson & Johnson version where they was actually using a simian adenovirus. So instead of using a lipid nanoparticle, it was using, and that's where it got confusing, because people would say to me, well, if you use the Johnson & Johnson, it's natural because it's just a natural virus. It's like, no. It's not. It's a natural shell. The carrier is natural, but they extract all of the standard DNA that was inside of that simian adenovirus, and they inject COVID DNA, not RNA, So this is one. This is when I said this is the worst one. You don't want to get this one because nobody knows what's going to happen. I mean, you're basically putting a foreign man-made DNA into your body that then gets incorporated into your cells. And it was funny how quickly that thing got taken off the shelf. People were not having a good time with that. And I will tell you, Jimmy, between you, me, and our listeners right here, guys, I don't want to be an alarmist, but I am seeing neoplasms right now. Cancers that I have not seen in my entire 30-some years of practicing medicine. And,
very rare cancers.
Very rare and extremely quick. Like they go from diagnosis to death within 3 months. It's just the weirdest thing. And the ones that I've seen that are like a squamous cell, where it's just and I know this because we have a normal CT scan of the, body, the chest, abdomen, and pelvis 3 or 4 months earlier. And then they get a repeat, and there's like these subtle little notches out of the bone, or, these little tiny nodules. And you biopsy it, it comes back as this weird squamous cell carcinoma. And then within a couple of weeks, the patient's dead. And I've seen it a couple of times now. I've never seen this before. And then the other one, I've seen people coming down with ALL and all these other things, and just very rapid progression. And, like I said, I don't know what's causing it, but it just concerns me that, we are now 5 years out from the artificial experiment that we did with these vaccines. And, usually you see some kind of genetic mutation will take a decade or so. So as we get closer to that 10-year, my assumption is you're going to see more and more if there is a relationship. And I'm not saying there is. All my experience is anecdotal. I have no proof of anything, right? It's just my observations. But, it's just kind of weird, these things that are popping up and seem to just, taking the lives of otherwise relatively healthy individuals.
And rapidly.
And very rapidly. I mean, just very rapidly. It's strange. I mean, because normal, tumors, you see them and you got a little bit of time because they start off as a nodule. And if you get to it early enough or you give them chemotherapy, you can knock that down. It may come back within, 3 or 4 years. That's a possibility. But these things, there's nothing you can do. You get them, and then a couple of weeks later, you're done.
Well, they need to change the frequency in which you get the MRI.
Well, yeah,
and starting treatment.
You can't do them. I mean, I don't know if they have a treatment for them. That's the problem. So,
right.
But we'll see. All right, we're going to take a quick break. If you have any questions for myself or Dr. Andrew, you can email us at the doctorsin, DOCTORISIN at WNZF.com. You're listening to the Doctors In on WNZF News Radio, 1550 AM, 94.9 FM. Stay tuned. We'll be back in a moment.
Thank you so much for recommending us to your family and friends. When you need a 30, 60, or 90-minute massage, it's real easy to book your appointment online. MassageByNatalie.org. MassageByNatalie.org.
Radiology Associates has been a trusted name in Volusia, Flagler, and St. Johns County for over 50 years. Radiology Associates is the first and only radiology provider to bring our neighbors of Flagler County 3 Tesla MRI, 64-slice CT, and time-of-flight PET CT in our Palm Coast Imaging and Town Center Imaging locations. This is our community. Our doctors live here and strive to provide only the best care to you, our neighbors. For more information about Radiology Associates, visit us online at radiologyassociatesimaging.com.
She's Carla.
And that's Alan.
If you don't know who we are,
now you do.
We're the owners of your local Benjamin Moore paint store.
Next time you're thinking about painting, think about us. Benjamin Moore, corner of Old Kings and Utility Drive,
Palm Coast.
And we're back. For those of you just joining us in the beginning of the show, we were, of course, mourning Charlie Kirk. He was a conservative pundit who used to go around to colleges and high schools, basically debate people, a very, religious, grounded individual, and very cogent speaker. I mean, I've seen him in a couple of videos. Our daughter used to follow him and was always impressed with him. And unfortunately, his life was cut short this week by a sniper. And just so horrible that this is what our society has come to, the disrespect. You disagree with somebody who doesn't think like you or talk like you, and this is what you have to do to silence them. Such a coward. I hope they find the guy and he gets his comeuppings, but I know he'll be sorely missed. We did talk briefly about some of the things that RFK is trying to accomplish, which, of course, we do support, for the most part. And what was the last thing we were talking about?
We were talking about the mRNA vaccine and how the new shift to the vaccines are going to be that they're going to be mRNA nanoparticle based, and that may be why the push is to make a choice. So
and when the Surgeon General from Florida came out and said that they're going to remove the mandate for vaccinations for school-age kids, I disagree with that. And someone asked me, like, aren't you an anti-vaxxer? I'm like, no, I've never been an anti-vaxxer. I get the flu vaccine every year. I wholeheartedly believe in vaccinations. I mean, since, the very first vaccinations in the late 1700s, when they found a cure for smallpox, which was a devastating disease. I full-heartedly believe
polio
in polio and, measles, mumps, rubella, and, tetanus and diphtheria. All these things are bad. And if you do not, require mass vaccination and you don't have that, quote, herd immunity that we're all talking about, that's going to be a problem, because these things are going to have a resurgence. I promise you. You're going to see polio again. You're going to see measles, mumps, rubella, and people are going to die from it. So, that's going to be the unfortunate thing. But I do think that there is some responsibility on both sides. We need to be honest with the American public and tell them how we're going to utilize these technologies. I would never get an mRNA vaccine in me. I don't believe in that stuff. I believed in COVID. I was always impressed with the COVID vaccine and thought it would be used for the most susceptible members of society. For, if you guys been following us for a while, we would say, yeah, well, it's okay if you're obese, diabetic, hypertensive. Those are the people I'm seeing up in the biocontainment unit, and we figured out why. But what was infuriating to me is that the leaders in our government and our medical field were not sharing that information. If they would have been upfront and honest with us and said, well, this is why we need to do this, this, and this. These are the susceptible members of society. If you think you're susceptible, here is an option. It has not been vetted through the normal, channels of safety and efficacy, but we think it's the only option we have at this point in time. So if you're scared, here we go, and let people make that decision. When it became mandated and a requirement to work, I was told if I didn't get the vaccine, I couldn't get paid by the government. I mean, that's just mind-boggling. I mean, in retrospect, it's still mind-boggling to me that there was enough power behind all of this nonsense that people actually believed in it and accused me of basically putting the rest of the population at risk. And I'm like, guys, while you were all cowering at home, I was going to work every day, sitting around people coughing all over me with COVID, and we didn't know what it was going to do. I thought maybe I'm going to die one day from this disease. I didn't. I got COVID and I survived it. And at that point, I never thought that I would need the vaccine because I did survive it. The only thing the vaccine is going to do, it doesn't stop you from getting COVID or any other kind of disease. It just hopefully mitigates the impact so that it doesn't kill you. So, there's no better immunity than actually getting the native virus or bacterium and surviving it, because now your body, by definition, is immune. So, the whole purpose of vaccination is to take a less virulent form of that virus, either, an attenuated or killed, inject that, have the body respond to it. So if you get the real thing, your body's already prepared, right? So that's what that was all about. We were going to talk, I've been talking a lot this show. Why don't you talk some? Because everyone accuses me of commandeering the microphone and not letting you to talk. Maybe we should have just one microphone so we could be really close to each other.
No, then I'd never get any work done. Nobody would hear anything.
Nobody would
muffle,
hear anything.
muffle.
Except me kissing on you.
Yeah. Vaccines, it's very interesting. And I grew up with a very dear friend who suffered from peanut allergy, like deadly peanut allergy, anaphylactic, and her child was born also with serious anaphylactic reactions. And she, going through the school system and watching how much she was harassed, and yet her child really had to go through pretty aggressive testing and treatments up at NYU in order to the hospitals, actually Mount Sinai, that she went to, that was preventing him or helping him so that he wouldn't have a deadly reaction to like onions and eggs. And I mean, is really frightening. And she had to be so careful with anything she did. She couldn't let anyone babysit him. It was very difficult for she and her husband, who used to travel a lot before they had kids. And so when COVID came around and she was trying to have to argue about not getting the COVID vaccine because she lived in New Jersey and they were very aggressive about vaccinations up there, just the hell. Watching her go through this was a nightmare. And I think, it shouldn't be this way, and it shouldn't be that you're coerced. I do understand the safety and the significance of herd immunity. And I do understand the significance of safe vaccines. And there are children, there are people who, when they take a vaccine because their cells are not completely healthy, they have a reaction and can get seizures or Guillain-Barré. It's so rare. But if you're the one person, then it's bad and it's not a good thing. And so I always think that people should have a choice. I mean, God gives us choice. I feel we should give people choice. We should educate them to the best of our abilities and allow them to make the most logical decision. When we don't do this, we actually violate the Nuremberg Code. And that was a code in Germany after Nazi Germany that was agreed upon, I think, by everyone in the world. That would never occur again, that somebody would be pushed and violated and forced to be receiving vaccines or medications against their will. And when people say, well, people had a choice during COVID, many didn't, because they had their retirement. Maybe they were up to retirement at 30 years.
They did not have a choice.
And so they had 1 year left, and they said, well, you don't have to stay. But then they would lose all their retirement, and they would need that. Or they couldn't attend college. That's not a choice. That's coercion. And that's a violation of our human rights. It's a violation of the Nuremberg Code. And it's very sad that this took place, not just in our government, but around the world, and that world leaders to this day don't have a discussion of this violation of people. So I think as a nation and as a people, when we eliminate choice, it is a very frightening situation because you don't know who is pushing that absence of choice upon you. So in all things, we should have choice. As God gives us choice, we should respect the choice of ourselves, of our children, and of our families and friends. And it really is it's an individual decision. And we need to respect people's choices and people's opinions, no matter how different they may be from our own.
See, this generation hasn't lived through well, I guess with COVID, but I'm not sure how much of that was real and how much of that was confabulated because, but a true scourge of society like polio that was, deforming, or things like smallpox or the Black Plague, and, took out big portions of the population. They didn't do that. And they don't know what it means to have the advantage of immunization. And we've lost that. But a lot of that I blame on the government and the medical profession. We have lost the trust of the people, and I've lost the trust of our leaders as well. I mean, if they would be upfront with us and tell us exactly how things were going to transpire and what the risks and benefits were. Every time I talk to a patient, when I go to the hospital, I have a discussion about the risks and benefits of the procedure I'm going to do. And every procedure you do and everything that we do every day has an inherent risk. I tell patients, I'm like, yeah, there's a risk. They say, well, can I die from this? I'm like, well, theoretically, yes. Anytime you do something to the body, you can die, but it is such a, remote possibility that I think you would be best to go forward with it because, again, the benefits of proceeding outweigh the risks of not proceeding, of proceeding, I should say. And, it's the analogy I use is like every time you get in the car and drive to the grocery store, there's a potential you're going to die in a car accident. It can happen anytime, not of your own fault. Someone could just run into you and that's it. That's the end. But we don't stay at home and not go to the grocery store because of the fear of potentially dying in a car accident. We don't even think about it, right? And most of us are never going to have a problem, and that's the same with all this other stuff. But when you're dealing with an experimental therapy, there are protocols that have to be followed and, through the FDA about how these are utilized. You have to file, a protocol with the government and how you're going to utilize this stuff. And if there's any adverse events, they have to be reported. None of that was done with this. None of it. And to move forward now, when we're just seeing what I am concerned, maybe untoward effects from the first round of this mRNA vaccine, I think is extremely risky. Extremely risky and very bold.
Very weirdly bold
said,
when they don't even know the ramifications of everything from COVID yet.
Exactly. So, I mean, you're looking at a manipulation of genetic code. The ramifications of that could be decades. And to think, I mean, we're only 5 years out from COVID, so there's no way that these
and
new
they
vaccines...
didn't really collect Vera data or the data related to reactions, they still don't really know.
Exactly.
Because there's no proper collection of data that had been done
Vera
or is
stands
done.
for, that's the vaccine...
I don't remember
something, adverse effect, adverse events with vaccines. If they can track that and see if there's a trend or if there's a bad lot that they can pull to make sure people don't get hurt from it. So none of that stuff was done. But, it's just mind-boggling to me that they're going forward with this. But again, if you're using the technology appropriately and the mRNA genetic strand is put into a human cell line, I'm a little better with that because the only thing that's being injected is the antibodies themselves. So it's no different than, taking this virus, injecting it into a horse, extracting those antibodies, and then injecting that into a human, which is one of the ways they used to do vaccinations, right? So, yeah, so it's going to be interesting over the next couple of years, and we're going to have to see what happens. But, some people, I've got friends of mine who were so excited about the Surgeon General in Florida basically saying we're going to remove this mandate. I'm like, guys, be careful what you ask for, I mean, for me, we're going to be okay. My kids will probably be okay. But
if they're starting to change all these vaccines to mRNA, I'm happy it's going to be an option and not a mandate.
Sure. But, then we're going to see the ramifications of going the other way.
Maybe not. We'll see.
No, it'll happen. I promise you. We live in too close of a society now. We're constantly interacting with you. So once this stuff starts breaking out, it's going to go like wildfire. But anyway, all right, guys.
And we'll get natural immunity.
Well, for those of us that survive, that's the key. If you can get the natural immunity, that's great.
Either you get the natural immunity or you're going to get a reaction from a mRNA potentially nanoparticle.
Or one of them's going to kill you.
So
roll the dice.
So you kind of have to think through, but somebody has to do their homework and make their decisions.
Right.
So.
I think that's the key, is you do the research, you figure out if it's the right thing for you, and if you're, if you are genetically susceptible, that may be the way to go. But all right, guys, if you have any questions for myself or Dr. Andrew, as always, you can email us at doctorsin@WNZF.com. Stay happy, stay healthy. We'll see you next time the doctors are out.